Hey there, I'm Mr. Terry, high school history teacher. Let's check out some memes. All right, this compilation comes from channel friend Drew Durnil. Original link to this compilation will be down below. Make sure you support him. All right, here we go. So, by the way, this compilation is titled "Everyone with a Time Machine Would Do This." All right, let's see what we got.
Beat newly formed communist Cuba. Decide to start a communist wave in other countries by force. Land a plane with 56 soldiers to start. 56 soldiers dead, 0 Dominicans. Land 2 yachts, 168 soldiers dead, strafed by jets, 161 casualties, 7 captured, 0 enemies hurt at all. Only invasion in recent history with 100% casualty rate. Man, the more I read about communist Cuba, they were just doing some wild things.
Yep, I mean, look what they did. They overthrew, before this, overthrew an American-backed dictator in Batista, and then thwarted off multiple coup attempts by the Americans, man.
Don't forget about the Cuban intervention in Angola.
That's
they
right.
Did not learn their lesson in 1959. They had to keep on going in the 70s.
Not a lot of people know about that. That is what we call a proxy war during the Cold War. Angola had a communist party, and Cuba, like friends, supported them. And a lot of people went and fought over there in Angola's civil war. Yep, they would call that a proxy war.
Today I will invade the Dominican Republic. Clueless. They just got 200 people blown up or taken as prisoner. This didn't go as they expected.
It's too zoomed.
Hearts of Iron 4 players will recognize that Dominican Republic leader at this time. Dang, so he was in power for like 30 years. Well, at the very least, the Cubans still got that Bay of Pigs invasion dub, so they didn't always perform horrible. Oh, it's so cool that after 9
Bay of Pigs, epic victory for the Cubans that way. Able to withstand a very, very poorly executed CIA-backed coup to try to land and then take over Cuba, and the Cubans basically just waited there and then took over, or took captive basically everyone that was part of this, and ransomed them back for millions back to the United States.
1989, you all brought proper justice to the former communist politicians. Meanwhile,
Not really.
The Warsaw Pact, Slovakia, Czechia, Romania, Hungary, Poland, and Bulgaria. Who could it be? Could it be?
None.
Well, maybe they striked a deal.
No.
You did this because
They had so many dictators. I mean, a lot of them got their comings up, but yeah, a lot of them just faded into oblivion.
you were forcibly Anschlussed, says the United Nations. You were a victim. I did it for me. I liked it. I was good at it.
Oh, gosh.
Okay, Austria. Well,
Austrian.
yeah. Okay, I am reading that 99.75% of Austrians were down to get annexed. Thought it was a little bit less than that, but
All right, you got to look. If you have not seen it, you need to look at what the ballot looked like for this. If I can remember in the editing to add this, great. You had 2 bubbles to fill in. Either yes for the Anschluss, which means Austrian unification with Germany, or no. The yes button's like this big, and the no button's off in the corner, and it's like this big.
But, okay. Austria, when Germany unites? No, we'd like to, but our own identity is more important. Austria 100 years later. What identity? I guess you could say the Anschluss wasn't the very start to German
I mean, it was
oppression.
pretty much when Austria-Hungary, the whole Austro-Hungarian Empire, the part that's Austria is basically German anyways. Sorry, Austrians, you're just other Germans with funny accents.
I finally found it. After 15 years, the scroll of truth. Oh man, what's it gonna say? The logistics of the Manhattan Project. Oh, get this crap out of here. Meanwhile, the people who believed the no-no Germans could have built an atomic bomb. This is a really interesting point. I was just reading the other day, over 130,000 people worked in the Manhattan Project.
However, very, very few of them knew actually what they were working on as far as like what the end goal was. They did their small little part of the project, but it was totally a need to know basis. You didn't need to know what the next thing was.
And it cost $2 billion, or equivalent to $27 billion in today's dollars. And don't forget that whole Norwegian sabotage that took place. Between 1940 and 1944, a series of sabotage actions by the Norwegian resistance movement occurred to ensure the destruction of a plant and the loss of its heavy water. And don't forget in 1944, the Germans were practically losing land on both sides every day. It would have been kind of difficult to have all these moving parts function together. The new nation of
I mean, yeah, Germany, I mean, they could have looked into it, but remember, they purged all their Jewish scientists, who a lot of them were on the cutting edge of atomic research.
Israel handing over a piece of paper to Albert Einstein. Wait, that's not any piece of paper. That's the Israeli presidency.
They wanted him to be the
oh yeah, they're totally serious about
first
this.
president.
For those wondering though, the president in Israel is a ceremonial figure, not a political one. Regardless, Einstein declined the offer.
Depends on the
Cold
time.
War going on all across the the world. Meanwhile, Japan be like, yeah, they out here just getting that bag, making all sorts of money. I mean, they were kind of just in this lucky position where they were free to focus on their economy. And by that, I mean make Godzilla films and eventually animate. But a lot of
Japan got off very easy after World War II. United States basically built them up, pumped in a ton of money, said you don't have to pay for a military anymore. So spend all that money on economic development. Go ahead and start making VCRs. And they did, and dominated by the time the 80s came around.
Other stuff too. In the 1980s, Japan experienced insane growth. It got to the point by
making
the
all
1990s,
your electronics.
A lot of the world was afraid that Japan was actually going to pass up the Americans. Obviously, that did not end up happening though.
Yeah, you know how today China is this economic boogeyman of the West because of their incredible growth economically? That's what people thought of Japan in the 1980s. But you see, it stagnates.
Make better consumer goods or draw 25 cards. Meanwhile, the Soviet Union, oops. Apparently, if it wasn't a military thing, the USSR didn't do a good job.
No, they were terrible. Their consumer goods were terrible. They couldn't sell any of it. Actually, it didn't even exist. So they really didn't have consumer goods because, again, they were a command economy. The government made basically all the economic decisions, and their decisions had to focus on things that were literally, well, one of two things. One is all the stuff that's necessary for survival, having to put all these efforts into things like managing agriculture and housing and healthcare and those sort of things. But then also just forking out the insane amount of money to keep up with the United States and military spending. So it didn't leave much room in a command economy for the development of consumer goods. Consumer goods, again, are things that you buy, usually with excess money that you have, and it's not necessary for your survival. You know, it's the stuff that you do with your extra money, your fun stuff.
I think there's one thing you're missing. Tetris. I guess video games could be considered a consumer
That
good,
is
right?
true.
Everyone forgets Tetris came from one Soviet. There's probably a lot more examples, let's be honest. The Philippines levying the USA despite being invaded once.
Well, the thing about their consumer goods too, though, is they weren't very good compared internationally. If they did make something, it probably was not very good compared to other markets. I'm gonna go back to this.
Taiwan levying Japan despite being invaded once. Well, I feel like there is also kind of a difference here. The Philippine-American War, I imagine, gets forgiven when the U.S. gets kicked out by the Japanese and then came back to help. Imperial Japan during World War II was not good to the places they were invading, except if you're formerly known as Formosa or modern-day Taiwan. They were treated a lot better because Japan had already controlled this island for decades.
It was a European colony before that.
Was not the same case for Korea. They controlled that in 1910. The war to end all wars. We're talking World War I, the Great War, or actually just after that. Because believe it or not, it's not like the world took a break after
This is Russian Civil War after World War I.
They just kept on fighting. There's a lot more 1v1s happened, like for instance the Polish-Soviet War. Don't forget they actually...
Things got even worse in Russia after World War I ended. You might think, oh, they had their revolution and then signed their peace treaty with the Germans and then it was all cool. No, they had one of the most brutal civil wars. It lasted years. Millions died. Way more of them are going to die in Russia from that civil war than in the in World War I. And then that's how you get Soviet Union officially after that.
They won that war. That's how they got their independence, the Poles. Then there's the German Revolution of 1918 to 1919. You've got the Irish War of Independence, the Finnish Civil War that took place, the Romanian-Hungarian War, the Turkish War of Independence, and finally the big one, the Russian Civil War, because that was still very deadly. And it's funny because we usually refer to the time between World War I and World War II as the interwar period, like as if there was no wars going on. Yeah, not so much. And that was just what was going on.
It's more civil conflicts. Yeah, that's the difference.
Europe, you don't even want to get me started on Asia. Struggling Americans having to make cloths out of food sacks during the Great Depression. Again, another event during the interwar period. Great Depression was not a war, but it was still pretty chaotic. Here's those very same food sack companies making the food sacks more colorful. Wow. Thanks for that as I drown out here. They really knew how to help out struggling Americans. Honestly, though,
I feel... Okay, I was going to say they were making those. I feel like wearing a food sack is something you'd see Kanye West show up to some kind of event for.
It looked pretty good. They did a good job with this. You can barely even
make
tell
the materials.
This is food sacks. This is one of the dumbest takes I've ever seen on this subreddit. You can actually see it as an act of compassion during one of the darkest times. Always got to spin it as companies bad, not helping the situation. Doesn't seem like this was supposed to be a slap in the face, just something to help. What would you prefer the food companies to do?
Okay, I already can tell. So I'm not really a Reddit guy, and everything I hear is usually not very good. But I think Drew's making the the mistake of, you got the memes, take the memes, they're great. don't read the comments on a history-related discussion on Reddit.
You put logos on the food snacks like Svens or Supreme. The Soviet Union, after losing 5 times more men, but still making territorial gains in the Winter War. All right, we'll call it a draw. This is Finland versus the Soviets. Everyone loves to bring up this point, or some people.
Winter War.
Yes, technically the Finns did lose land after this event, but at the cost of 300,000 Soviets gone just to annex territory the size of Rhode Island. Like, Finland should have never performed as well as they did in that war, and like this was a finished dub. Come on, let's be real. Then don't forget Winter War.
Especially when you look at what the goal, was for the Soviet Union. Again, how bad it could have been. They put up as good a fight against the Soviet Union as anybody did.
That takes place soon after.
What we got here?
This was a finished dub. Come on, let's be real. Then don't forget Winter War Part 2 that takes place soon after. I mean, considering Poland got completely obliterated right before that, the Soviets probably figured they could just do the same thing easily to Finland. Britain asks Iceland to join the Allies. Iceland refuses. Britain invades. Iceland, how dare you? Complicated times there in World War II. Lasts all that long though. Agriculture is great.
Forgot
Food
about
is right
Greta.
next to us at all times. Our population is increasing. We live in houses now, and we have time to focus on more things than just survival. Oh, they can make art. Some unspecified time later. Agriculture is terrible. The food is right next to you. Everyone gets sick all the time, so now everyone's dying and sleeping with your family in the same room. Sucks.
The great trade-off.
Consequences of the agricultural revolution.
Exactly.
I don't think we saw this coming. Meanwhile, millions of years ago, humans evolving.
Hey, he nailed it. Drew is he's so good at he's getting so good at this stuff too. Of seeing, these events for what they were. So yeah, domestication of plants and animals, pros and cons. It's totally like a pros and cons thing. A lot of people say that people actually had more free time than you thought, even as hunter-gatherers, because, again, you had 2 things going on. You actually spent a lot of time just commiserating with your family, and as John Green said in Crash Course, as you guys know, they were scootily pooping and all that. But it doesn't necessarily provide population growth. And that's the big reason why hunter-gatherer lifestyles did not last long. They don't, aren't conducive to that. Now, what is going to happen here is once people start farming and are able to stay in one place, that's going to increase things like warfare, because certain geographies are going to be much more beneficial for that type of lifestyle. You got that. Living in close proximity to each other, yes, that can also provide for the spreading of things like disease. And it also is going to bring the progression to today to our sedentary lifestyles. So, pros and cons, like every advancement in history, industrial revolution, agricultural revolution, it always comes with pros and cons.
Same room sucks. The consequences of the agricultural revolution. I don't think we saw this coming. Meanwhile, millions of years ago, humans evolving the ability to sweat. Hundreds of species evolutionizing for stamina. This is like our secret weapon. Salty fluids come out of our pores. Why did I phrase it like that? And there's nobody that sweats more than me, I'll tell you that much. I don't know why. I just think I'm in a sauna every time.
No, Drew, you're a small guy, okay? Us big guys, we are just exuding constant heat at any given moment. We have like this aura of this increased temperature, this bubble of hot stank around us, all right?
Above 100. Agriculture versus hunting. In agriculture, crops get stored. Obviously, hunting, they don't. But with agriculture, those stored crops attract rats, whereas rats aren't attracted by crops with just the hunting method. Rats attract cats. Cats aren't attracted by rats when you're just hunting. Cats get domesticated. Cats don't get domesticated over.
Sure. Hey, the biggest thing that was there, that first line says crops get stored versus crops aren't stored. That is the biggest reason why the agricultural revolution ended up being more beneficial to the growth of humanity, is because certain crops can be stored for long periods of time and stave off famine. 2 biggest things that have equalized human population through human history has been disease and famine. So yes, you are going to get disease as a matter of people living in close proximity, but the ability to stave off famine made it so disease isn't going to, decrease human population in a way that human storage of food can't overcome.
Over here, best system ever, worst system ever. Okay, so we have more pro-agriculture propaganda. If we just stayed hunting and gathering, we would not have domesticated cats. And the internet probably wouldn't even exist today. I'm convinced the only reason why the internet took off is because of funny cat photos in the very beginning. I mean, even now, they're still so popular. The earth is degenerating today. Bribery and corruption abound. Children children no longer obey their parents. Every man wants to write a book, and it is evident that the end of the world is fast approaching. This was from an Assyrian tablet, 2800 BC. Human history is just a constant cycle of it's over and we're so back, boys. It's just human nature, I think, to lose hope in newer generations.
I love this because this is pretty early in writing history. So Assyrian tablet, they would have used cuneiform, which was invented by the Sumerians, who were just a few centuries before this. And all that writing was mostly about economic stuff. It was about trade and accounting. But then you get cool stuff like when the Syrians come around, where they start writing things, writing stories and their own opinions and religion and all that. And then you can see how cool some of this stuff was. This is when writing started to get cool.
Girls with a time machine. Mr. Herschel, congratulations on discovering the 7th planet from the moon. The next and most important step for you is to stick with the convention and give it the Roman, not the Greek name. Oh no, are you at fault here for the unending jokes about this freaking planet? For some reason, Herschel broke with the naming convention of giving each planet its Roman as opposed to Greek name. Herschel dubbed his discovery the Greek original Uranus. This actually makes me extremely upset. It's annoying. Even though I make these jokes a lot, like, it's such a dead horse now. I literally cannot watch a video about the solar system without hearing the Uranus joke.
It'll never not be funny. Come on.
Continue throughout human history. Like, maybe if humans just like have civilization collapse and then we
What was that Futurama clip where, when, you know, Fry, he's from supposed to be the present day, goes 1,000 years in the future, and they were talking about planets, and Fry's like, hey, let's look at Uranus, and then he starts laughing. He's like, what, to the professor, and the professor's like, what do you mean? It's like, we changed its name to get rid of that stupid joke. Fry's like, what's it called now? Professor goes, Eurectum.
we have to rename everything. Maybe that would be better, because it's never going to stop. In another universe, it could have been this name instead. I think we do need to invent a time machine just to go back and fix this. Meanwhile,
we need a better name for the universe.
Time machine,
that's
Polish
not
noises.
universe.
Oh no, the no Germans are invading. We've come to help. Oh, and they've brought modern weapons to POV. You've traveled back in time to help with the Battle of Warsaw. I've always been curious how much you actually could help by bringing more modern weapons to, obviously, the World War II.
No. That's not going to do anything against the first two waves of Blitzkrieg. So Blitzkrieg, the Poles saw this, was incredible amounts of bombing first, and then the heavy tanks, heavy machinery, and then you're going to have your, army to army combat. So yeah, not so much. You'd have to be able to better fend off the Luftwaffe, the German Air Force.
Still struggle against tanks and stuff.
Exactly.
But I always thought it would be fun to time travel and fight on Little Round Top with a M240B,
sure.
M240B. I'm trying to go back to be one of those winged hussars,
yeah,
with AK-47. I don't know how well that would go, but history books focusing all on Carthage. Meanwhile, the Mali Empire drowning.
True.
But don't forget about
here's the thing. Nobody focuses on Carthage. Everybody focuses on Rome destroying Carthage, not in Carthage itself. But yes, Mali Empire, Mansa Musa, richest man that's ever lived. Mali Empire, rest in peace.
Books focusing all on
Timbuktu,
Carthage.
never forgotten.
Meanwhile, the Mali Empire drowning. But don't forget about the Songhai Empire, the Kingdom of Ghana, and
the empires
Ethiopian
before,
Empire, as well as finally the Great Zimbabwe Empire. Or I don't know if they were.
See, this is my game. All right, this is my stuff. This is my AP World History stuff. We got to talk about all this. You guys take AP World History. You're not going to get all this cool stuff in your regular history classes. There's not enough time to do it. Take it.
Great Zimbabwe. Talk about African nations not giving enough credit. Always Carthage. Actually, you're missing Egypt. Egypt also could be put like right around here. Nubia is also a good choice. Gets a lot of attention. But there's still so much more of that to African history and great nations. Also like the Ashanti Empire.
Hey, great commentary from Drew on this video. I love hearing his stuff. He knows his stuff and brings in, again, these awesome memes. Always does a great job. So hopefully I was able to add some things to it. Hope you had a lot of fun here today, and we'll see you all next time. Bye.